And welcome to the Commit Happy Hour here on Friday the 9th of June at 3:30 BST. Today we have a very, very exciting lineup looking at some of the connectivity of the future. We've got a great lineup of Ant, Elizabeth, David, Steve, Stephen and Sarah here to talk to us about communications and how we're going to get better and faster at moving data from site back into our central common data environments and from there back out again to get to the point of usage. So I'm going to hand you over to Stuart now, who is going to tell you a little bit more about the project. Stuart.
Thanks, Ian, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about Commit. Realise we've got a packed agenda today, so I'll be swift. For those that don't know, Commit is a collaboration platform of owners, contractors, solution providers, and academia. We have a long history of developing and running projects and webinars with a focus on improving productivity and creating value with the attention on better outcomes. Commit's been doing projects for a number of years, but of course, behind all the projects and the initiatives we have is a simple goal, and that is improving productivity. And often the best improvements come from a combination of knowledge, people, process, and of course, technology. The Commit community, the Commit and its community is identified with the major barriers facing our industry and has developed a unique opportunity to create enablers with the potential for beneficial change that would lead to across industry improvements. By being collaborative with all of our stakeholders, we can create this value and enablement through process improvement and run these projects. The long-term aim is to reduce capital project costs and a reduction in cycle times. Okay, a bit about today. I'm going to encourage everybody to ask the questions as we go. Appreciate you might not have them till the end, but if you do have something that crops up, go to the control panel on the right-hand side and fire those questions over. Okay, a little bit more on intro. Commit is a member-based organisation, and we have some new members to mention. Bear with me a second. EHAB, the logo on the left, green and white, is a weather risk management tool that allows construction clients and contractors to automatically and proactively manage their risk allocations under each contract. This platform offers further risk mitigation features through a variety of parametric and regular insurance policies. The other organisations are Hexagon, M&P and Leica, and they're under the same umbrella. Leica has a history of more than 200 years and recently took over M&P, which is now all part of Hexagon. They're trusted suppliers of premium sensors, software and services. They deliver value every day to professionals in surveying, construction, infrastructure, mining, mapping and other geospatial content dependent industries. So welcome to both. Little bit of an introduction to what I've got planned for later. We've got a project that hopefully after today we will kick off. We've got a number of very interested participants already lined up with this. I won't say too much more now because I might spoil the session, but tell you a little bit more later. Okay, so the session today, connectivity of the future. We'll hear from the presenters and panelists with an update of 5G. We'll also hear about LTE-M and applications that can provide value. So 5G has the potential to transform the business world, including our construction industry. During this session, we'll have a look at what the benefits of 5G are, how they can be implemented and what the future holds for 5G. I mentioned about LTE-M. This is a type of low power wide area network radio technology that will enable a wide range of cellular devices and services to help deliver value. The network technology behind this is designed to provide slower speeds and longer battery life for Internet of Things Plus. Okay, before we get into it, I want to just get a feel for things. The poll questions. I can promise you we've no curveballs this week. We've several straightforward questions that demand answers. I've got multi-choice answers, and if I can, I will just launch the first one. So here's the first one. 5G availability. Everybody see that? It's starting to increase across the UK. Are you using 5G technology now? Planning to use 5G in the next 12 months? Considering using 5G in the next 2 years, or not considering 5G? You should be able to see that on your screens now.
Yep, can see that now, Stuart.
Okay.
Cool. It's certainly starting to increase, but I would personally, in this sort of my area of usage, I'm putting myself right at the bottom, well, not quite at the bottom, but considering using it, purely because I've not really had the opportunity to assess it or to get involved in understanding its impacts of yet. But yeah, no, and obviously the COMIT project will help me to do that. So what have we got, Stuart?
We've got just a minute. I'll close that up and share it. You should be able to see the screen now. So 14% using 5G now.
That's really interesting.
Wow. Wow. Anybody on the panel, Ant, do you want to come in and comment on that? Elizabeth, David?
I think they might be muted.
Sorry, I was double muted there, Stuart. My apologies.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question and very interesting results. I'd be really interested to learn more about those use cases that are already in place, and also what people are looking to use in the future. We're seeing lots of small proof of concept ideas, and also lots of more consumer usage as well. So that might be where that 14% is, but I'd be really interested to learn more. Maybe we'll talk more about that in the Q&A.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me hide that one. Bring in the next question. What is the most important thing that you're hoping 5G will deliver for your business? You should be able to see that now. So is it increased efficiencies, improved revenue opportunity, improved health and safety, improved customer experience?
That's an interesting one in there. I would have hoped there would have been a carbon option in there as well. Because I think if we can improve how we communicate, I think we can certainly significantly reduce our carbon emissions and impact on construction. But I would have to tick all four, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Of course, Stuart, but I'm wondering, is it possible to choose more than one? I know we've asked what the one most important thing is, but
no, we haven't got an option to do that. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Of course, it will vary on the vertical. If you're in an airport, then you might say, well, safety can help me with my safety. But if you're an office or a warehouse, you'd say, well, it's about efficiencies for me. So I think it does vary by vertical as well.
Sure. Okay, so 47% increased efficiency as well. Yeah, no surprise to me for that one. I mean, the benefits for health and safety, I think, could be quite large. And I know there's a few people very interested to see how it can work.
Yeah, I think when people are concentrating less on trying to get a signal on site, holding the phone up or holding the device up or walking back across the site to get to the Wi-Fi hub, that will improve the health and safety on site purely by cutting down movement across those hazardous areas.
Yeah, sure. Steve, do you want to go on? Sorry.
Sorry, Stuart, I was going to say, yeah, and hopefully we can bring to life some of the areas, particularly around health and safety, where it can help. And I think really important we have this session today, because I think 5G and the what is it, I think is something we really need to spend some time on and just bring it to life beyond fast mobile.
Sure. Okay, let me close that one up and get the next question up. Okay, what connectivity technology do you believe will be more important for the construction industry? And if I can launch that now, so we've got a whole host of things here.
Oof, blimey. I think actually I'm too ignorant to answer that question, and I would hope that that today might enlighten me on some of those things, some of the differences. So I'm going to have to tick other, because other is I just don't know.
Perhaps we should run the poll again at the end of the session.
Maybe. Thanks to Stephen for that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that around that, you know, it's horses for courses. So, you know, the key bit here is about the use case. So it's not about take away the technology and saying, well, what is the problem I'm trying to deal with? You know, what is my budget? What challenges does that technology have to deal with? So, you know, if I need lots of low, cheap, you know, network connections that don't send out much data, then LoRaWAN's great. But if it's about connecting to devices, that existing devices, then Wi-Fi is great because most devices support Wi-Fi. But if it's about latency and large volumes of data over a large site, then your sort of LTE 5G is your key technology.
Mm.
Sure. Okay,
and
we've
got Sarah with us today as an expert in that field, so we can we've got a number of experts on, so we can delve into that one in much more detail.
Okay, I'm going to bring the next question in, conscious of time. Everybody see this one. What will be the key use case for the construction industry for LTE 5G private mobile networks? And well, there you go. Digital twins, predictive maintenance, IoT, site security, comms, AR. Oof.
I would sort of put a lot of that into the new bucket of modern methods of construction. So I think, you know, I couldn't just tick one. I had to tick a lot there. Some good thoughts though.
Yeah,
I think I'm with you on that. I think there's I'd like Elizabeth's multiple choice on that one. I think I'd probably tick 3, maybe 4, maybe all of the above. Just have one that says all of the above.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close that one and share that. Can everybody see the results?
Yeah, 50% with digital twin. That's that does seem to be getting a lot of interest at the moment as a technology, and it makes a lot of sense why. And I'm sure we will cover that in a little bit of detail as well. But interesting that 50% they're already seeing that as important.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let me hide that one. And final question: what is the main barrier holding back the deployment of more LTE 5G private networks in the industry? You should be able to see that now.
I would probably at the moment go for lack of know-how. I think a lot of organisations don't quite understand the potential for LTE 5G, and it's sort of the return on the investment. Because I suppose we don't really measure a lot of time wasted sitting there waiting for a page to refresh or for data to go down an unstable line. We don't really, I suppose we don't really look at that, but it's not just the time wasted, it's also the morale of our workforce and the well-being of our workforce. People get stressed because they can't get data moving backwards and forwards, and that can't do the health of our employees any good either. So I think I personally would say it's the lack of know-how at the moment.
Sure. Well,
I'd just like to add to that on the back of what you were saying about the environmental impact. Kind of what we are seeing is when you don't have the connectivity that you need, you get a lot of people travelling back either to the regional office or to an alternative site. So there's a lot of carbon there as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, can everybody see the results?
Yeah, we've got that.
I think you're bang on, Ian. 50% lack of know-how. I mean, I really say thanks to everybody that's answered on these. This is some great information that we can use in the project, and hopefully once we've dissected this, we will be able to use it. So appreciate that. conscious of time, I want to just close that up if I can and move on to the session itself. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to bring everybody in now. If everybody can turn the cameras back on, that's able to. I know, Sarah, you can't. So let me just do a quick intro. We've got Ant Morse, head of digital sales, leading the teams of technical sales specialists and experts across the range of digital technologies and solutions. We've got Elizabeth Ponsford, 5G product lead, who leads new product development and strategy around 5G for business. We've got Sarah Murgatroyd, IoT solution specialist, specializing in LP-WAN technologies such as LTE-M and IoT-led applications and solutions. We've got David Owens, head of technical trials. David leads the external trials work for VMO2 with government, industry bodies and academia. And then we've got our very own chair for construction at COMIT, and also site services manager at Waits. That's Steve Slater. Steve is the chair for construction at COMIT and has been involved with COMIT since 2005. And then we've got Stephen Muldowney from Technical Consulting, representing COMIT member EMS today, which is a telecoms consultancy based in the UK, working with clients across the globe. Stephen brings over 20 years experience of working with CSPs in fixed and mobile sectors. And welcome to everybody today to present and sit on the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ant, and just bear with me a second. I'm going to make Ant the presenter, and Ant will run from his desktop.
Super.
There we are. All yours, Ant.
Stuart. Okay, so I'm just going to test the technology, make sure we get the right screen shared. So if someone could just let me know, do you see the full screen, digital future of construction?
We do.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
got it.
Thank you. And first of all, those poll questions are really interesting, and as much as they help COMIT, they're really going to help us as well. We invest millions and millions of pounds every day into our network, and understanding what your kind of use cases and knowledge to date is vitally important. So Stuart took us through the introductions there, but you just see our names from the O2 team. You'll have to excuse the O2 slides. We are now officially Virgin Media O2, but we're just in that process of changing all our slideware and getting used to it ourselves. But as we come together as two organisations now, it extends our portfolio even further and our capabilities even further. But today we're going to talk about 5G and LTE-M as technologies. We've got a number of slides we're going to take you through, and I'll pass to the experts. As Stuart mentioned, I'm the head of digital solutions, but we're joined by the various heads and technical expertise from the O2 side today, who are going to guide us through it. Let me just move the slide deck along. So just as a kind of an introduction, really, and based on some of the poll questions, I just want to cover a few things about the kind of obvious points around 5G. So 5G is being tipped as the game-changing technology. We hear about it everywhere, and there's lots of, and I will use the word hype, but hopefully this webinar will bring some of the realities of that service to life. We hear about it revolutionizing industries, completely changing communications. So faster video calls, augmented reality, and enhanced video services. We hear about it being used in gaming and entertainment, offering those super low latencies, so everything's happening in real time. And that's really enhancing the service and experience for the user. We hear about remote surgery being carried out across the globe by surgeons using 5G technology. And we're seeing the world of retail look at pretty much at their own survival and their own evolution of the future of their services and how they can use more interactive and engaging services. Now, the interesting thing for me is, and having been around the industry for the near 30 years, the interesting thing for me is this is the very first time we've seen a technology that's been focused slightly away from consumers. The use case for this 5G technology is very much in business. As we roll out the network of 5G, and as with every reiteration and band before it, it takes time for us to cover the UK fully, and it doesn't make sense to cover it all in certain areas. You know, it's about where demand and utilisation of those services are. But this is the first time we're not looking at where consumers are, or purely looking at where consumers are. We're actually looking at where businesses may need this. Where are those super fast services going to actually impact and make a difference, whether that's in a supermarket or whether it's in an automated factory? And you'll learn more as we go through this. That's likely to be where these use cases are brought to life first and foremost. What that means for us is we can actually build the network quicker on top of that then actually feeds and supports our consumer customers. But as I say, this for me is very different. It feels very different in its rollout, and the experts today will share more. While we talk about 5G and LTE, actually, 5G is that super fast technology that is going to take some time for 100% coverage. But actually, LTE-M and other 4G and 3G services can actually provide an awful lot of support to some of those technologies that were touched on, such as digital twin. And we're going to talk about LTE today, of some of the use cases for the here and now. How's it help going from super high bandwidth to actually very low bandwidth, very light touch services? So hopefully we're going to cover both ends of the spectrum. I mentioned that it's around working with business are going to be the industry, are going to be the people who accelerate the rollout of 5G. And we're working with a number of organizations, and maybe something we can get to in the chat and the Q&A at the end. But we can, we've got use cases of deploying how it's going to look, how 5G might work in a supermarket, and how it might work in those automated factories. And we're working with lots of customers. We've got a number of different test beds, and we're looking for more as well. We're looking for those proof of concepts. One of the poll questions is around, I think it was a low score on understanding the ROI. Well, I think it's really important for these types of technologies that we look at that, we understand the ROI, and again, those proof of concepts are how we're going to do it. While I don't want to be a killjoy of the service for consumers, we are rolling out at an incredible pace, and that with COVID will accelerate even further, as our investments and our efforts are focused on that. And as mentioned, we're targeting where people are really going to be able to use these services. Also as well, I think it's going to be one of those services that is collaboratively expanded. So it's about what people like Apple and Samsung and the manufacturers of handsets and the innovators such as Google and Facebook, what they do will decide which of these technologies will prime, which of these technologies will lead. The best description I heard recently is it's like VHS and Betamax. Might not be the most obvious solution that gets across the line and goes for mass deployment. It'll be one that's adopted by the masses. So I just wanted to cover that in a little more detail. Once again, thank you for joining us here today. I'm now going to pass it over to David. So welcome, David. And if I could pass to you, and if you could do the Chris Whitty next slide, please, I'll click through as we go.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. So really, thinking about 5G, the 5G ecosystem and standards will continue to evolve and grow. We're working closely with industry sectors, government, academia, and other experts and organizations to help us to continue to develop our evolving understanding of 5G and its ecosystem, to help us also identify and uncover the future benefits of 5G that it will bring to society. And I think that's the key point. We really see 5G very much being embedded into the fabric of what we do, like electricity and water and heating and lighting in our buildings today. This is what Ant was describing earlier about 5G being different. You'll hear a lot more from Elizabeth and Sarah later on this too. Also, this is where our partnerships come in, and whether it's collaborating with partners or others, we have one aim, and that's to continue to uncover these exciting new use cases that deliver real value for our customers. And at the same time, we continue building the technology and infrastructure that will power the network that we need to make all of these possible, all of these new use cases possible. It's very much a journey, 5G. It's more of a marathon than a sprint. Unlike other network technologies that came along almost in a finished state, 5G is still very much evolving, and it will be the users of 5G, the network operators and the vendors that will drive the final destination. 5G technology that we use in our network right now and the incredible products that follow shortly are really just the beginning. And ultimately 5G and everything it enables will change society and our economy and a lot more. The only limit really to 5G of what it will do in the future is our own imagination. So I think we should all see that very much like the computer was a dream machine, 5G can be that dream machine too. And next slide, please, Ant. I think I've done that one anyway. So we've done the evolving standards in 5G, sorry. So next slide again. So now we're changing tack slightly and going to talk a little bit about private networks. So what is a private network, I guess, is the big question, because it can be many things to many people. But if we start to think about it in the context of 5G, it's creating a dedicated, secure digital network to support industrial applications. And by doing this, we're starting to see some of these future benefits of 5G. We refer to it as a technology called URLLC, which is ultra reliable, low latency communication. But really, it's about that enabling the Industry 4.0 experience, which is much faster data with a lot lower latency time too. So just to confirm what I believe the fourth industrial revolution to be, really for me, it's the ongoing automation of the traditional manufacturing industrial practices using smart technology. Examples of this are collaborative robotics and drones, my favorite hobby, AR and VR remote experts and training, as well as computer vision, which is based on neural networks and machine learning and AI. And this is where the fast, low latency communication built in to the very fabric of our industrial society will make a huge difference going forward. So we have started to deploy private networks. One really good example is Leonardo. Sam, unfortunately, who couldn't be with us here today, has done an amazing job putting together a number of POCs, and the Leonardo military defense company and manufacturing has a multi-site private network with a large manufacturing base as well. And that is allowing us to run many applications around faster data, high-speed data, I should say, and low latency. And the use cases that they're really focusing on are the drones, the AR, the VR, and the drive for efficiency and the acceleration of automation. There are many compelling use cases also for construction. I know we're here today to talk about construction, so the construction companies too can benefit by building private networks into the fabric of the buildings that they build. This will provide much greater value and efficiencies to their customers whilst increasing revenues. That's what I believe. An example here, for example, could be Balfour Beatty is building a factory or a warehouse or a power plant and integrates a 5G private network to replace the Wi-Fi or the internal wired local area networks. And this will add further value to their customers, but also future-proof the building and the occupants, with 5G in mind, and will be leaving them able to take full advantage of 5G as it evolves through the next decade. And again, really just to say that this is just the beginning, and as more customers see the benefits, we expect to see this demand increasing. So a really exciting period for us starting. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a taste of what private networks are and where 5G is going with its ecosystem. Next slide, and I think that's to you, Elizabeth, isn't it?
No, I think it's actually to Sarah. And thank you, David. I think that's it's really good. And I think the piece I mentioned around the private network, that's the piece that will, for me, is going to accelerate the rollout. So as industry adopt those private networks, we're putting the capacity and the power to the sites, which then, if it's a supermarket, we're going to cover more around that local area. So it's going to, it's almost a collaboration of rollout, in my opinion. Utilising that fibre network in the ground as well to make it happen. So no, thank you, really useful, really appreciate it. And Sarah, if I could bring you in, I loosely tried to explain what LTE was in my introduction, but I'll leave it to the professionals. So what is LTE-M?
Thank you very much, Ant. Very nice to meet you all today. So LTE-M in brief is a low power wide area technology which supports IoT through kind of lower complexity devices and allowing longer battery life. And this will allow kind of a wider management of IoT sensors and data without having to install gateways. So essentially, it's a different type of connectivity bearer to, for example, 4G or 5G. It's actually an extension of the existing 4G radio access network, but it meets the specific needs of IoT and kind of machine-to-machine applications. because LTE-M has dedicated licensed spectrum, and that's the key here. I know we had a poll question about this earlier, so I'll cover that off shortly. But because it's licensed spectrum, you get the benefits of the high security network capability with the low latency and higher bandwidth. Essentially, the poll question before, I think, was around there was different IoT technologies, including 5G, LTE-M, and then some unlicensed spectrum options like LoRaWAN, Sigfox, and things like that. With just to be transparent with everyone, LoRaWAN, for example, is very widely known, particularly in the construction industry nowadays, because it's really easy to roll out. An organisation can build their own gateways, which have a significant cost, and they essentially build their own network and then have a wide variety of sensors available to play with, essentially. Where LTE-M compares with that is that because it's licensed spectrum, it's not piggybacking off anything else. You get the higher security and you don't get the bandwidth issues that you have with LoRa. You still get the great amount of sensors and wide-ranging types of sensors that are available, but O2 has made the investment so that you don't have to when it comes to rolling out gateways. So some examples of where LTE-M might be used for IoT applications in comparison to something like maybe 5G would be where power becomes an issue. So, for example, we have customers using lots of water meters underground. That could be a good example. Or if you were building a managed building and you wanted to put sensors in there to measure things like temperature and humidity, or maybe CO2 emissions, things like that. Often these types of sensors then become really hard to get to replace batteries, and sometimes if they're not in a fixed location with power, it can be really difficult to then get engineers out to replace them, and often you actually end up spending a lot more money on servicing and management of those sensors than you did actually installing them in the first place. So where low-powered WAN technology comes in is that, the key's in the name, low power. So you're not having data through for all the time, you're only having it when you need it, which means that you're saving money on the amounts of data that you're using, and you're saving the amount of power that those devices are using as well. O2 specifically chose LTE-M as our low-powered WAN technology of choice due to the wide range of use cases that it covers across a wide variety of sensor types. It's a proven technology in the US and across Europe already, and we have a number of customers using it already in the UK for different applications, some of which I mentioned before. So some key takeaways really for LTE-M is that it's got the highest throughput of any low-powered WAN technology. It's much lower latency than other low-powered WAN technologies like Sigfox or LoRa that are unlicensed, as I mentioned. And it's got higher bandwidth than those unlicensed spectrums as well. It's also the only technology or low-powered WAN technology that provides voice over LTE. So if you have a voice requirement for IoT, this is really the only way to go. So yeah, hopefully that's given you an indication of LTE-M, and we can move on.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. That's really useful. And just on that, I think to see a lot, I mentioned about the VHS and the Betamax. For me, this is an area where we are seeing investment, we are seeing innovation. So it seems that people are backing this as a technology, while there's lots of others. And I did see a very interesting use case recently around voice over LTE-M for lone worker type applications as well. And I think it was vulnerable drivers. So yeah, really interesting. And thank you for through that. We'll come back to you in a while as well. So Elizabeth, over to you, if we may. We mentioned in the introduction that it has the potential to transform business, and it's going to be business focused in its first wave of adoption. But tell us more around the use cases and the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely, and good afternoon, everybody. So I've had the great fortune of working with businesses over the last couple of years as part of our 5G discovery to really explore what those use cases are and what that means to businesses, including construction, travel, transport, retail, local government, all different types of business. And we explored hundreds of different use cases and then explored how that could add value to businesses. And I would say that they fall broadly, not exclusively, into these three categories. So it's about enabling, through these applications, helping businesses to become more efficient. And that could include the way they can protect and grow new revenues, whether that's through asset tracking and monitoring, designing more agile business practices, less downtime, faster processing of data, and ultimately this move to automation. The second piece is about how it can benefit our employees. So the most important part of a business, many would argue. And this is how it's not just about empowering, but it's also about safeguarding, which I recognise is incredibly important in the high risk environments of the construction industry, for example. So how can AR, VR, mixed reality, video analytics, David's mentioned a couple of these things already, start to mobilise staff and empower them, giving them the information they need, and also protect them. So it's, in some cases, this will be through serving people with the information at their fingertips to enable them to do their jobs. In other cases, it might be removing workers from a very high risk environment and replacing that with drones and robots. And I'll go on to explain some of the work we've done with some of our customers on that shortly. And then the final piece is how that delivers an improved customer experience. So how to start understanding customers better, be able to deliver experience in a far more personalised and interactive way. So what I wanted to cover off in the next couple of slides, and Sarah will join me on this, is to talk about the applications of 5G that are here now, so the near-term ones. And some of this has been, I'm going to share with you some of the work we've done with Northumbrian Water Group, one of our utilities customers, using 2 of these technologies. Now, last year we set up a 5G network within Northumbrian Water, one of their water sites, and we were able to test brand new technologies over 5G, but it's important to say that some of these can be used over 4G as well. So 5G, what we learned, is actually going to create an improved and maybe faster, slicker experience, but they can still use these benefits now. So the 3 that I'm going to touch on here all use augmented and virtual reality. And the first one, which we were calling Remote Expert, it's actually a product we've now launched, is about empowering and mobilising workforces. So where you've got large mobilised workforces who might be doing complex tasks, giving them a headset to wear, which gives them step-by-step instructions to complete a task accurately, safely and efficiently, whilst they've got their hands free to do that. So in many cases, users have ended up having to refer to manuals or additional devices. This is about having it right in front of their eyes, but in a non-intrusive way. The second part of this is how they can call on support from other people should they run into problems or they need to collaborate with a group of people. And the reason we call it Remote Expert is the use cases about how you better deploy those expert and perhaps more specialist resources to be able to support people remotely. Use augmented reality to overlay instructions for a field worker. And lastly, it gives them the chance to capture information and evidence of tasks as they go along, whether that's a survey of a piece of equipment or a site, or indeed proof that something's been checked or maintained. And this creates that digital audit trail that can later be used for training. The second area that we looked at was using virtual reality training. And again, this is around working in a more efficient way, an immersive way to deliver training to people, and a safe way as well. So in the case of Northumbrian Water Group, they were using it to train apprentices to lock off electrical supplies, which is a high risk thing to do. So by being able to take them out of a probably quite dry classroom environment and put a technology on the students or apprentices' heads that allow them to properly interact with that, improves the way that that training can be delivered and their retention of the information. And the last one, also using Remote Expert, and I'm going to ask you to press the play button here, was for Northumbrian Water Group to start to visualise their infrastructure, which in this case was critical valves underneath the ground. So to be able to identify accurately where they were and then pull up information about them. It might be the status, it might be when it was last maintained, for example. And so this is really helping them to work in a more efficient way. But actually, it was interesting, I think Ian mentioned about sustainability. All of this has an environmental benefit as well. It's about deploying resources far more efficiently and saving on travel time and of course the carbon footprint. The next piece I'm going to just talk about briefly is the use of computer vision or video analytics. If you can go to the next slide, please, Ant. And this is particularly relevant for health and safety monitoring. So using video analytics, including taking feeds from existing CCTV to start looking out for triggers and anomalies that could be happening within a site. Now, it could happen in a public place, we can look at tracking movement of people, but in a private environment, and in fact, for example, in a construction site, it's using AI to spot behaviours, triggers and anomalies to start to give that real-time alerting and reporting which allows businesses to intervene at the right place, and that could start to automate actions as well. For example, turning off a dangerous machine if somebody gets too close to it, or turning it off if something overheats that can be tracked by the camera, but also retrospectively have reporting to understand where how people have moved around and where the risks and hazards are happening, so as to start planning both training and also how to start putting in mitigation measures. The PPE one is a well-used example, tracking to see whether the right PPE is being used by the right people on site. So we'll just move on to the next one. Actually, I think we're back to Sarah now to talk about, oh no, we are with me. So the next piece is another one that we've looked at with Northumbrian Water, but other customers as well, which looks at the use of drones. So these are being used widely already for many different applications. So whether from asset inspection, asset maintenance, aerial mapping and surveying, security, surveillance, and even deliveries. I mean, you'll see a picture of a box being delivered by a drone, and these are becoming a reality now. At Northumbrian Water Group, we used a drone to survey a reservoir to look for compressed air pipes in the water, which can't be seen from the shoreline. So it meant that to save people going out onto a boat, it can be seen overhead, but also allow them to look out for discolour of the water, which is symptomatic of algae blooms. And where 5G is going to really come into its own is about being able to connect and control these devices. So being able to stream that info back in real time and support automation and AI, as we've seen with the health and safety monitoring. So the opportunities to use drones, both with non-5G and 5G, is going to be huge in the future. So I'll pass back to Sarah now to highlight what the opportunity applications for asset tracking and monitoring.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's great. So asset tracking and monitoring is just another use case that we found our customers have been discussing with us recently for kind of 4G, 5G, and specifically this one really runs on LTE-M services. Asset tracking and monitoring is essentially a connected device that gathers location and asset-specific data from sensors, sends it to a platform which manages device performance, and then that will generate reports and alerts from the data that's been collected. And we've seen that our customers, essentially often in a bid to determine kind of a total cost of ownership of a potentially high price asset, they found the need for monitoring and tracking those to be paramount. And they've suggested to us that they'd like to have a centralized system that provides critical information that they might need. So these could be things obviously like location, as I've mentioned, but also things like maintenance history and a contract for that particular asset, if needed, and all that information is needed in real time. So by using a combination of hardware, software, and network services, our customers are able to incur lower administrative costs and better accountability and cost savings. So with the information on the asset condition, for example, they're able to then plan for future maintenance and growth, resulting in overall efficiency, reducing the amount of time that particular asset might not be in use, for example, thereby delivering kind of more accountability, more information, and more efficiency around the assets that they're using in particular. And the obvious one for asset tracking as well is that if something gets stolen, you know exactly where it is and can see that it hasn't been tampered with. So that's asset tracking, if you'd like to move on. All right, so these next slides are I guess some future opportunities that we might see from the use of LTE-M and 4G and 5G. So we've had essentially making sure that efficient operations are running more smoothly, and making sure that if we need to monitor buildings, then we can automate that. I think I covered that off briefly in my initial slide. Next one, please. Yeah, so we see this quite often actually. We have customers, we've seen this a lot in construction recently actually, for building of social housing in particular, where the customers are asking us basically for a way to monitor when windows are open and when temperature is too high. So is someone internally having the heating on and they've got their radiators on full blast, but then they've got their windows open, for example. So this could apply to social care as well, making sure that residents are not too hot or too cold, and just monitoring the overall health and CO2 emissions of a building. Next one, please. Pollution is a really big one that we see mentioned quite often as well, and we're hoping that this will continue to increase given our dedication to the environment, given that we're in 2021 and we all should be doing our part. So monitoring the pollution and the impact that that's having on a particular urban or rural environment has a great impact. So this one really for local councils or for anyone that's looking at creating new building work and is looking at the CO2 emissions on a particular site. This is really important to make sure that the health of the general area is maintained. And I think there's one more, Ant, or maybe two more. Ah, yes, thank you. So this is a great example here. So we've seen this with utilities companies and construction companies recently, where they've lost a lot of money from leakages on site, and they need to understand in a quicker, more reliable fashion where those leaks might be, and monitoring the waste levels. That's a really good application for LTE-M, because we can fit some sensors underground that can just sit there and wait until they need to do something. Essentially, that's a really good use case for LTE-M. And I think there might be one more. Yes, connecting to the smart grid. So making sure that when you're building new homes in particular, or any new buildings, really any new office buildings, that they're connecting up to the smart grid using smart meters and other smart technologies to make sure that the future of building is more efficient. I think that's everything from me, Ant, but just double check on the next slide. Oh, there is one more. So yes, overall, just working towards a bigger picture of environmental health and safety of employees and residents of any buildings as well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And I think that the fact that the examples keep coming actually does help to articulate really that, you know, the use cases here are far and wide. And I think the knowledge and the ROI piece in the poll earlier is really relevant here. I hope that session has helped to explain some of the use cases. We'd be thrilled to talk to you in more detail around this, whether that be to run these types of presentations deeper into your individual organisations. You know, we'd be thrilled to do that. We are on a mission to educate the world on what the solutions and the service might mean and realise. We also run a number of workshops. So you'll see the workshop here. Obviously, in our slightly restricted COVID world and our uncertain return to the office, we've been running workshops virtually on over a system called Mural, where we can really look to say, well, we now know what the technology is, how would we use it? And then there's a number of tech incubators and test beds where we can actually take an idea and take it to the next level. So we can help your organizations understand LTE and 5G in more detail. We can workshop with you what some of those ideas may actually become. Is there a use case? Is there an ROI? We often say that innovation that doesn't solve a problem is a gadget. So, you know, what's the real use case here? How could these technologies help drive efficiencies, improve safety, you know, reduce asset losses, those kind of things? And then when we take it to the next stage, then we say, right, let's actually test it in anger. Let's try a proof of concept that takes it from the drawing board into a does it stand up, and is there a business case here, and is there a need to do it? As I say, we don't really we don't want to waste anyone's time with gadgetry. We're looking at the real use cases here, and as mentioned, you know, we're thrilled with the poll information that you've provided there, because we want to know what our customers need and what the potential use cases might be and how we can really help. As I mentioned in the very start of the introduction, game-changing technology, and we're really keen to explore what that potential and opportunity might be together. So thank you ever so much. Contact details are on screen here. I'll hold it on that screen for a little longer. Feel free to reach out to us directly. There are work email addresses and also our LinkedIn profiles, whichever method works for you, and we'd be thrilled to talk more and understand where 5G might sit and where LTE may support your organisation. So Stuart, thank you. I'll pass back to you.
Hello, Stuart.
So if we've got Stuart, but it looks like the slide suggests it's question time next. So I think if we've got Stuart back with us.
Yes, I'm here. No, I'm here. Yes, we're here. Okay, so I have got a number of questions here. Just bear with me a second. Okay, everybody back on? Everybody hear me? Steve, are you there?
Yep.
Ian? Elizabeth? Sarah? Okay, so
Yep.
whole bunch of questions. The first one I'm going to kick off with, which was the first one in, was from Kevin. Why should IoT devices which currently support 4G/LTE-M be upgraded to 5G LTE-M? What are the key benefits of upgrading? Now, who wants to take that question? Ant, is that something, or is that David?
Yeah, I'll give a start actually, but I may pass to my my more experienced colleagues. Actually, it probably doesn't need upgrading. I think we'll take Sarah's view on this as well, but actually maybe it doesn't need upgrading. The differences between LTE and 5G, while it feels as though they're really obvious partners in a wider solution, they'll actually provide different services. So the low power send, basic information is never going to need 5G. However, there is a but to that, which is the size of IoT and the growth projections for IoT mean that the network capacity on 4G and GSM technologies is going to start to creep. So what 5G does is it gives us mass scale. And I'll pass to Sarah probably to articulate that much better than me and fill in any gaps. So Sarah, your view.
Yeah, no, thank you. I have to say you articulated that very well, Ant. So yeah, the key difference really is not necessarily to upgrade from 4G. It's just to understand the right technology that's needed for the particular use case. So while 4G still might be really beneficial in some cases, LTE-M or another low-powered WAN type of technology is perfect for an area where you don't have power and you're relying on battery power, but you don't necessarily need high throughput all the time. You might just need to take information from a sensor or a device maybe once a day or once every hour rather than all the time. Where 5G comes in is where you need massive amounts of data all the time. So it's going to revolutionize the world of particularly things like remote expert that Elizabeth mentioned before, and really sharing content and collaborating with other people. But also as we move into things like massive machine type communication and the huge amounts of data that are going to be needed to go through for that, 5G is just going to really speed everything up for us. So we can help if there's a difficulty in understanding which technology fits which particular use case. That's where we can help, and all of that can be done from one platform, so that you can manage your devices in the same place.
Okay, thanks, guys. Kevin, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, come back. Okay, so what is the next question I've got here is from Tien Van Tier. What is the benefit of a private 5G network over regular Wi-Fi for a contractor's client? Okay, take that one.
So I'll have a go, and then maybe Ant and Elizabeth and Sarah can add some stuff to it. So the first and most important aspect of 5G over Wi-Fi is that 5G is secure from the device to the network. Wi-Fi is what we call an open subnet. We know that it's being improved over time, but it's still the security aspect. And then secondly, the thing that follows is around the spectrum that can be used. I mean, the spectrum today, depending on how the network is deployed, if you're doing it with an operator, then you get access to the public spectrum rather than just, our spectrum rather than just the publicly available spectrum. So it means that there's a lot more capacity there for higher throughput speeds. And also the way in which a private network would be deployed in a site, it would give you access to computing power, which is the way in which we improve the latency speed. So that helps you with things like computer vision, collaborative robotics, and IoT applications that both Elizabeth and Sarah referenced earlier. So it's more secure, it's faster, and it gives you access to these wonderful 5G use cases in the future. But I still see Wi-Fi as an important part of the story going forward, Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah. That's very clear, David. Thank you. Okay, so the next question I've got here, if I can bring Sarah in for this.
Stephen Stewart wants to say something. Sorry, Stephen.
Very cool.
Yeah,
on,
hi.
Stephen.
Yeah, just wanted to say that I think the other bit that Wi-Fi, that 5G brings over Wi-Fi is around the scalability of it, its ability to cover these larger sites. You know, if you've not got the cable infrastructure, to run across a large site, then you're going to have to put less access points up on that site, which can be a sort of both a commercial and physical benefit that 5G brings, being able to cover that large site with a smaller level of infrastructure.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Can I bring Sarah in now? Sarah, this question is, okay, is LTE-M vulnerable to zero-day exploits? I'm sure you know what that is.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Apologies, this might be one that I have to take away to our technical expert for LTE-M, just to understand in a bit more detail whether that's the case or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've probably added a little bit, but yeah, we'll take that one away and give it a bit more detail. I guess security threats are ever present. Our network, does carry a high grade and a high function of security in it. Security at its core, really. But we'll provide a little bit more detail from the network team around how we deal with zero-day threats.
Sure. Okay.
One thing that I will just add to that before we end is that LTE-M, while again I'll refer to kind of our security and technical experts on that one, LTE-M, because it's on the O2 network, it carries all of the security weightings that the O2 network carries as a standard. So our CAS T accreditation, for example, is a really big one. So for security concerns, licensed spectrum like LTE-M would usually be much better than unlicensed, such as LoRa, Sigfox, Zigbee, etc.
Okay, great, thank you. I'd just like to say we're getting near the hour. Please do stay with us for the what we call extra time. We will definitely not go to penalties. I have several more questions here that have just come in, if I may. Thanks very much to Ian. Ian has had to drop off. He's gone for some birthday celebrations. Happy birthday, Ian. So with the next question I've got here, thanks to Matt for this one. The possibilities with 5G are amazing and should create a great flow of information, but are we creating a single point of failure? People will become reliant on that data access, such as the health and safety tools and the augmented valve locator, for example. But what is, hang on, I can't read the rest of the question. Bear with me a second. What's plan B? Who wants to take that one?
I'll make a start on that one if I can. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll share a story from many years ago when there was a network outage in a particular area, and the company in question went to a crisis call. So all the networks joined, and the outage was impacting a couple of different network operators. And a statement was made of, have we built a communication plan entirely on cellular? And what's our DR plan? And it did actually make us realise that actually, many organisations, ourselves included, are running our critical infrastructure on the back of a radio network, and radio networks are subject to challenge. And what we're seeing in certain cases where mission criticality is absolutely essential is that there are a number of different failover technologies, whether that be multi-SIM, roaming SIMs as well, where a SIM can jump from one network to another, so it gives itself a degree of resilience. And on site locations, we're seeing resilience and coexistence of Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6, standard Wi-Fi, and also 5G and 4G failover as well. But where you need that super low latency, it's a very good point. There is a point of failure that the very nature of a cellular network is going to be there. But reliability and resilience is at the core of many of the 5G services. But David, I don't know if you have a view on the kind of fallback of, we hear about remote surgery. And I see Stephen's got his hand raised as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these private mobile networks are enclosed networks. So in that sense, they have an added layer of security in that they are dedicated networks using potentially their own bandwidth. Of course, there's what O2 will offer in terms of a slice for certain opportunities. but a lot of these private mobile networks are on premise as well, so they're dedicated networks. So that brings a level of security around that, and also you can move to sort of more different types of architecture to bring different levels of redundancy in terms of where you've got the control planes in the cloud, and then having user planes locally as well. So there are different ways to build in. Also, on top of those points you added in and around to bring more security and resilience into a private network.
Yeah, and I mean the whole premise of what we call a network of networks is that you get the advantage of having your own on-site core as well as the network. So it's the whole network piece. It's the core radio element. Sorry, it's the core and the radio element in one place. The public network can provide similar facilities within factories through slicing, as you suggested, Stephen. And I think so those two can work together. And I think the way in which we're looking at future resilience and this ultra reliable low latency, one of the ways in which you can deliver this higher reliability is to have this network of networks feature that allows you to have your own dedicated private network. So that in itself is the way in which you improve reliability and improve fix times. And what we didn't talk about earlier, because I normally do a whole spiel on 5G, we talk about software-defined networks and network function virtualization. And that allows you to spin up instances of the system that you need in near real time so that you don't have capacity bottlenecks. So then the network can adapt to the load of the customer's use cases, as well as serving the actual fundamental underlying use case. You get this scalability factor that is built into the network, and this next generation core that's coming with 5G will allow us to do that. So it's incredibly interesting, and I could talk for hours on it. One of the things in a wider network where we talk about network of networks is we talk about indoor networks, terrestrial outdoor networks, and then satellite networks to sort of fill in the gaps in between. So see in the future all of these working together seamlessly, and including and not forgetting Wi-Fi.
Brilliant.
So that's how the redundancy, reliability comes.
Thanks, guys, for that. I want to bring Steve in. Steve, you've got a question that you want to ask about 5G and connectivity. Do you want to ask? I don't know if you've got anybody in particular you want to ask the question to, but share with us your views on connectivity and the issues. I mean, this is something that we've had at the top of our agenda in COMIT for 15 years, or probably even longer. I can remember this being a problem when I was doing a project in the Midlands, and yeah, it used to create frustration for me. I had a full head of hair once, but Steve, do you want to share your thoughts and ideas on it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think Ant alluded to a lot of hype around 5G and a lot of the figures that we've seen in the media, gigabit numbers, lots more devices connecting. So my question's really around, I've got a bit of reservation around some of those numbers, because if we look back at 2012 when we saw 4G in the same place as we are now with 5G, we were seeing numbers brandished around over 100 megabits and things like that. And kind of what we're seeing today on our sites, sometimes we're getting 5-10 megabits if we're lucky. So I just really want to understand, when 5G becomes ubiquitous, what's that going to look like?
Can I take that, Ant?
Yes, please. I have a view of it as well, but great question, Steve.
Yeah, great question, Steve. So I think if we start with the fundamentals of 4G very briefly, and then I'll explain what's different with 5G. So 4G, we've got fairly narrow channels, 20 megahertz channels. We can aggregate 3 of those together, and they will, on a normal typical site, as you rightly say, can get to the site peak throughput of around 100 megabits reasonably comfortably. But the problem is then the number of customers that you have on that cell. So one of the things that changes over the years, which we've seen as the data rate starts to decrease, is more customers pick up on 4G, which is a natural evolution, but the amount of data that they consume also doubles every 18 months. So one of those really fascinating challenges that we face, or opportunities, is that we've got to build in a whole network's worth of capacity every 18 months to keep step. 5G takes a really big jump, and what it enables us to do is to use channels that are 5 times as large as the 4G channels were, and allows us to aggregate 5 of those together rather than 3. And that means you get an overall speed gain of about 8.3 times as fast as you were on 4G. But more importantly, we've got more spectrum, and that's the really big change. And more spectrum is coming as well. We've got the millimeter wave bands that will allow us to fully deploy up to 5 channels worth of 5G. Now today we're with our 3.4 and our 3.6, we get to almost 100 meg channels. So we have one of those, which is already 5 times as large as 4G. Plus we have all our 4G resources and our 3G resources and our 2G resources. So the service should get better. The other aim of 5G is to decrease the price of infrastructure so we can build more. And we believe as an operator that today we've built 20,000 sites, so, which translates to about 100,000 cells, which is the directional antennas on each of those sites. We believe that for 5G, we're going to need 100,000 sites, and they will, be from in-building sites that we've talked about in private networks all the way throughout to satellite. So we think that, we will be able to deliver on the benefits and the promises, not just the Gartner hype cycle that, but the real underlying strength of 5G is this robustness around these new channel sizes and this new spectrum. So hopefully, Steve, in 10 years' time when we're sitting here, we're all, using a gigabit of data quite comfortably on the cell.
I will look forward to that, David.
So David, can I just jump on that? So assuming we've got 5G everywhere, which I think is what you're alluding to, how can we start benefiting from these applications before we actually get to what you might call saturation?
Yeah, so I mean, Stuart, just thinking about the rollout, we're in about 200 towns, I think, today. We've got a lot more work to do, and the great thing is that 4G is the best network that we've ever built. And I know, Steve, your experience of the speeds reducing, they do reduce over time. That's why we need to build more sites and we need to add more spectrum because we've got more customers doing more things. But it is that between now and when 5G is fully rolled out, Stuart, we've got this amazing 4G network with great technologies like LTE-M to use. And what we're trying to do, and the mission that Ant, Sarah, Elizabeth, and I have got, is to try and get people excited about 5G so they think about building it into their infrastructure. Because if you think that in the UK, there's something like 6 million small to medium enterprises. And with the higher spectrum that we get, it's more difficult to get into those buildings. So one of the real ways in which we can improve coverage for business, but also benefit from increased revenue through better applications, is by putting cells in buildings. And that will improve service for everybody and give us the greater number of cells, which gives us more capacity. And if you think about it, really what it's doing is it's bringing the fiber, that fixed wire, closer to the customer. And that's really where we want to be. So the future network for me is a network where we've got millions of in-building sites, we've got hundreds of thousands of external sites, and we've got satellite networks to fill in the gaps, across the oceans, as well as in remote areas and difficult to reach areas. Great.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to say that I'm inundated with questions, and to those that have asked the questions, if we don't get to them, don't panic. I will get with the panelists and the presenters, and I will answer the questions afterwards via email. So yeah, please, they're extremely valuable. They're valid. Keep them coming in. We will get back to you one way or the other. I've got one question here that deals with security, and I know somebody touched on that earlier. But what can the panel please comment on the increased benefits of 5G? I think that's the question. Ahmed, thanks for asking that. Who wants to take that?
I'll give a view, and just to echo your point there, any questions that we don't get to answer today, we'll get through those later today or next week. And again, open offer. We'd love to learn more. You're providing us with invaluable insight here. We really need it. So what are the benefits? I think it's the network of the future, and while I kind of play down the hype of what we're actually going to use it for and the use cases it's going to be present in, it feels to me having seen all the reiterations, I go back to the Cellnet days of standard cellular. Having seen all the reiterations, this does feel as though it's the one that, instead of just getting a bit faster, is going to be the one that really brings those benefits. I think in the case of construction, as we touched on around digital twin, I see that there's been a very popular technology. Lots of people are looking at proof of concepts now, not just from an efficiency perspective, but from health and safety and from digital inclusion even as well. He's been tipped on that. We're going to see a huge amount of innovation from the big tech players. So if you look at the patents that are filed at the moment around augmented reality, these services need 5G speeds and latencies to work. Entertainment, gaming is probably one of the biggest industries. As I'm sure anybody with children in the house or the family, you can't get the kids away from these devices. Augmented reality will, and low latency services are absolutely critical for those types of use. Asset tracking in LTE-M, I think is going to be a no-brainer business case. The ROI, the people we've worked with so far, it jumps off the page and says we need to do this. And then obviously not forgetting health and safety, as you've seen from things like the computer vision projects as well. The health and safety we can't put a price on, so it will have an obvious place. But Stephen, I see you have a raised hand as well.
Yeah. So I just want to add onto that. So other things I think will be useful, and what I've seen on projects I've worked on, and taking a bit more basic, is just secure comms. So a lot of these construction sites suffer from poor communication. So I recently was on a call talking about the A14. The A14 site was so large it had to be split up between a number of different push-to-talk vendors to provide that sort of the communications. So and you think, well, actually, that's nonsensical. Why would you do that? So you could having secure comms on site and using 5G or 4G to provide that voice and data over that network to a simple basis is going to be quite a starting point around that. And then I think I see a couple of other use cases that haven't mentioned yet, which is around automation. So automation of some of the equipment actually on site. So we're already seeing that in mines, open cast mines and underground mines, where they're automating cranes on port. So the next logical step is automation of equipment on site, and then that equipment is site around we talked about the asset management of it and usage of it and checking around that, but predictive maintenance. So if you see that something's going to break down, that you already got a replacement on its way, so there's no loss of any productivity or efficiency while that machinery is being either fixed or replaced. So I think there's a couple of ones around that that I think are also very valid use cases for 5G within construction.
Sure. Okay. I want to, just before we get near too close to the end, I want to just mention the project. If you could just bear with me a second, I want to just skip forwards. I mentioned earlier about the 5G project, to commit to 5G. This is something that myself and Steve put together. If anybody's interested in getting involved in this, then we have a number of expressions of interest already, but this is about commit through and through. We've done projects right from day one. We want to solve some problems. We want to leverage resource. We want to create some value for the organisations, and hopefully all those that have expressed an interest will want to get involved in this. We will look at a number of number of areas that you can see on the screen. You can see Spot the Dog. We've had Spot the Dog on already through Trimble. There's opportunities to use this, use the technology to make things like that work. Obviously, IoT, we've heard a lot about that today. We looked at AR, VR. There's so many operations that could be improved in our working projects. So get in touch. There's Steve's email and my email on there. Please get in touch. Just wanted to say that before we get any further, because I realise we're getting close to finishing. But yeah, back to the questions. We have a few more questions, and if I can just ask this other question we've got here, just bear with me a second. We talked about security, and one of the things that Andy asks is, we mentioned that LTE-M is suitable for lone worker and other safety critical systems such as lifts and whatever. What is the UK coverage on it, and does it have any system redundancy? Now, I think, Ant, you might have touched on this, but Is there anything you can add to what you said earlier? Is there anything you could expand on?
Yeah, absolutely. LTE-M technology, so there's two parts to it. So I guess there is IoT technology, which is UK nationwide coverage at the moment. LTE technology is a growing technology. So while it's low bandwidth allows it to penetrate further, we are actually only covering half of the country at the moment. So we're looking for the use cases that will provide the growth. We only cover we have a number of proof of concepts, and there's all sorts we can do around that. If people have got the ideas and they're not sat in the part of the country we cover, that's not potentially a showstopper for us. But yes, we need the use cases, as mentioned with that VHS and Betamax example. It's, you know, which technology will be the one that is adopted, will be the one that's likely rolled out. We will be continuing the rollout for full coverage, but in the meantime, you know, we're really looking at where we can support customers that have coverage today, where we can't, what we can do, what's the use case, what's the business case to deploy that. But then by the end of this year, early next year, we'll have full coverage anyway. But yeah, it's having that frequency that gives that fuller coverage and deeper penetration into those sites, I think that, you know, really does lift the use cases. It, as mentioned, doesn't need that that high bandwidth. So the polar opposites really, but both, you know, horses for courses really. But yeah, unfortunately, COVID has delayed our rollout plans somewhat, as I'm sure you'll imagine.
Oh yeah. Okay, can I bring in Stephen? Stephen, you had a question about system integrators. Do you want to ask that question? Are you?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. It was just out of, you know, because the private mobile network is very, you know, is a very high growth area, and it's got a lot of talk within the industry about who is going to be the dominant players. You know, we have to look at the panelists here today. We've got O2 as being M&O, absolutely one of the key sort of delivery partners for private mobile networks. EMS, who I'm here representing as a sort of system integrator, or enterprise service provider, can also start to do it, you know, for some of these smaller private mobile networks. So I was interested to sort of get people's view on the panel around who they think will be the key delivery. You know, will it be some of the key construction organizations that now start to put these networks in, or will it be still dominated by the operators or system integrators or enterprise service providers or neutral hosts moving into this, or Wi-Fi providers? Be interesting to see what the other panelists think is going to be the key delivery channel for private mobile networks.
And do you want to take that?
And do you want me to give me a generic view, and then you give a more specific O2 where we are today?
Absolutely, yes, please. There we go.
Yeah. So going back earlier, you know, there is a massive market in the small to medium enterprise area. You know, 6 million. We've got something like 100,000, not 100 million. That would be really tall to ask to do. It's taken us something like 30 years to build 20,000 sites. You know, kit's got easier to integrate, and it's got cheaper, but we still need an order of magnitude change in price. So I think that there's ample opportunity for all of us. I think having partnerships with operators that have spectrum is a really valuable route for any system integrator, whether, you know, whatever their size, they really need the backing of an operator to help them deliver on the promise of private networks. I do appreciate there is some spectrum there that Ofcom have offered in the 3.8 to 4.2 band, and there are test and development license opportunities too. But if you're starting to run this as a professional service, you really need spectrum and an operator to back you in that. But I think we need many system integrators, and I think it's, you know, it's not quite the new frontier, but it's a very interesting, exciting opportunity as PABXs were in the past. You know, I see this as the latest iteration of the telecommunication solution for many small to medium and large enterprise customers going forward. So I think there's a huge opportunity, Stephen.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that, David. And for me, Stephen, you know, we're already seeing the partnerships, the collaborations, you know, having the spectrum and the skill set to deploy this will play a strong role. But there are many, you know, it will rely on many partners, particularly as the usage, as the cases as this technology starts to be embraced with innovation and the right applications, then we're going to have to turn the volume up. So, you know, there'll be a whole collaboration with dark fiber providers, network operators, system integrators, innovators. It will be you know, I think again, while I play down the hype, you know, I'm also, you know, hugely passionate that the future of this technology is considerably game changing. I just think the reality is it's going to take us a few years to get there, but we will get there. You know, before you know it, then we'll have 6G.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I don't see one party being the dominant. I think there's plenty of business for everybody. Everybody brings their unique capabilities to play for those different customers. Customers will have different requirements. So I think it's an open market for lots of different people, and you're right to put in the point about collaboration. I think it's very important. There are really successful projects of where system integrators have worked with operators to use their spectrum or work together on projects in terms of using their system integrator skills to help them with delivery of projects, etc. So I think, yeah, there's plenty of business for everybody working separately and together.
Yeah. Just adding to that, Stephen, as a final thought on this today, where we are as operators is that neutral host is the easiest solution to integrate into our network. We've obviously got the JOTS model too. There's a MOCAN model and a MORAN model, and those last three we still need to do more work. So today the easiest operating model is either standalone or integration through a neutral host. To your point.
Yeah, no, definitely so. I'd agree.
I'm just conscious now we're getting near to the close. Steve, can I bring you in? Is there anything else you want to add? Do you want to say anything about the project? Anything just to close out?
A couple of things. Firstly, just to ask on the back of Stephen's question, are we having the conversation with owners and operators around the integration? Because that sounds to me to be key. The contractors only build what the owners are asking for, so that was kind of a bit of a point there to raise. And I think, yeah, I'm really excited about the 5G project, because this looks, as everybody said on here today, a real game changer is 5G. And I think from my perspective, in my role at Waits, and certainly for a lot of my colleagues in other construction organisations, being able to deliver a network that will provide from day one connectivity right through until the end is absolutely going to change the productivity, the efficiencies, everything that goes around construction. So really can't wait to see that come to fruition. So something I'm really excited about, and absolutely, as Stuart said, you know, please get in touch, and yeah, we'll start circulating a bit more.
I've got a number of people that have, since we've been on, have expressed an interest as well. So I will get back to everybody, I promise. It's absolutely crucial that we use what we've got from today, including the answers to the poll questions. And also, we did a little bit of a survey on the registration, and thanks to everybody that participated in that. Some great information there, and it's an opportunity for me to speak directly those that want to get involved. So I will do that. Let me just finish up. The project, okay, we've talked about that. I want to thank our sponsors. Thanks to O2 Business and Rebim. I want to say, please join the conversation. You know, social media is alive with the things that we're doing, things that we've done in the past, and join the next one, the next community. Sorry, the COMIT Happy Hour from the community. I'd like to thank Jerry. Jerry does a lot of work in the background. Thanks to Jerry for your support and rallying the troops. And thanks to Ian for coming on at the beginning. It is his birthday today, so he's bailed out early, rightly so. We have done the extra time, so there we are. But before we go, I'd like to say thanks to everybody. Thanks to Ant for organising everybody. Thanks to Stephen. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to David. Thanks to Sarah. Thanks to Elizabeth. Really appreciate your time and effort. I think we've had a great session. Looking at a number of questions, I've still got to answer. I will save them and share them with everybody separately, and we can put down our thoughts and ideas, and hopefully we can get some engagement from it. But yeah, COMMIT's built on an environment of collaboration, or background of collaboration, an environment of projects where we've leveraged resource, we've provided solutions, and we've created value, and that's what we want to do going forwards. And when I first saw the opportunity to create commit to 5G with LTE-M, I thought was great. I mean, I can remember back to the days when RFID came to town, and that brought some real value. But the opportunities here are significantly better, in my opinion. Being a construction operation professional in the past, I've struggled to control assets. Where are they? What they're doing? And I think we've got a great opportunity. So thanks to Ant and the team for coming along and presenting some real nuggets. I'd have to say there were top draw nuggets, and hopefully, well, looking at the reply we've got from people today, the questions, I think we've created some interest. So without further ado, if there's anything else from anybody, fire away. If not, then I'll close up. I'll get the recording started, and I'll share that afterwards. So anything, I'll go from left to right on my screen. Stephen, anything from you?
No, just say I just want to wish England a good luck, of course, at the football weekend. So.
Of course, yes, absolutely, yeah. And anything from yourself?
No, just thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. Great to speak. Look forward to catching up with you again.
Thank you, Ant. Steve?
No, yeah, thanks for everybody, and I particularly like the LTE-M, which I have very little knowledge about before today, so thank you very much for that.
Jerry, anything from yourself?
No, just have a nice weekend, everybody, and great webinar again. Well done.
Fantastic. Sarah, I know we can't see you, but anything from yourself?
No, just to thank you for having me, and if anyone wants to reach out and discuss LTE-M or other technologies in more detail, just pop me along.
We'll certainly be doing that, Sarah. Certainly
Thank
be doing
you.
that. David, anything from yourself?
Just to thank you for letting us be part of your session this afternoon. Hopefully, we've helped you understand 5G in a little bit more detail.
Brilliant. Thanks, David. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, well, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Okay, bye everyone. Bye.
Bye now. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend.